take out the wall.
Okay, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't write the song again.
It's okay.
Do you really know God? I know the question is odd, but we're gonna figure it out. So stand tall, stand really stout. Do I really sound like that?
Maybe you should. No,
But I don't like the awkward silence.
I'm joking, but
Christian joke of the day. So Jesus is sitting there in his pastor, and the wise men are bringing him all of his gifts. And so the first one comes, and what was it? One was gold. So he goes, I give you gold. And the next one comes about, what was it? Was it rye?
No, I bring you frankincense.
Oh yeah, frankincense. That's what it is. And the next one goes over, he's like, I give you frankincense. And the third one goes over, he has a hood on, he's looking real suspicious, and he goes, I bring you myrrh. Then he pulls out of a bag a knife, drops the hood, he goes, murder! And then you see Jesus, or you see Mary, Judas, no!
I think a lot of people already know that Vine, but anyway.
Okay.
That was a Vine.
Listen, I don't
That's
like the
fine,
awkward
yeah.
silence, and everything I do just makes more awkward silence.
So, anyways, welcome to another episode of Do You Really Know God? Now that we had the joke of the
I
day.
have a better joke.
So, this episode, we're going on
Yeah.
why God. We're going to talk about why God. I'm going to start with first Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you, except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure. I'm going to start off with what triggered this podcast to me. Episode is I was listening last night to Christian radio, and the preacher on was talking about different sermons. It was actually he's doing a lot on Matthew, out of the book of Matthew. And he's telling a story about one of his friends was asking why do you love God so much? Why do you believe in God so much? And what gets you to that point? So he told his friend just had open heart surgery a few weeks prior. He looked at his friends. He said, when you went to the hospital to get your operation done, he goes, "Was your family there and your friends?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay. Now, when you went in the operating room, were your friends and family in there with you?" And his friends are like, "Well, no, they're in the waiting room. They're not allowed in there." He said, so he turned around and he said, "You know who was in there with you?" Friends are like, "Yeah, well, the doctors." He's like, "Yeah, but you think the doctors really care for you? They're just doing their job." He goes, "Well, no." And he goes, "Did you know your doctors?" He's like, "Well, no." He goes, "Who do you think was in there that you know?" And his friends are like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "God. God was in there with you. That's what helped you through it. God was with you the whole time. So why not?" And like they said, is your friends and family can only be with you in certain times. But there's times when they can't be there, or times like when you want to be alone. Your friends and family there can't pull you through, but God can't. God is always there by your side. And that's what inspired me on the thing of why God, because a lot of people talk about why believe or why not. My question is, why wouldn't you believe? Because in those times of need, He is always there, and He is talking to you. You just gotta listen. He is your friend to talk to, and He always knows your problem.
Yeah.
And He is the only one who you have to basically care about, who cares about you in the end. When you think about it, your family ain't gonna keep you from dying. Your family is not gonna get you into heaven. Your friends are not gonna get you into heaven. He will. And the reason why I picked this Bible verse is temptation is a big thing. this day and age. We all have certain temptations, whether it's drugs, sex, money, whatever it may be. There's so much temptation, alcohol out there that we're always tempted for. And I was reading a thing last night on Bible studies about temptation. And I thought it was pretty good because temptation, God does give us temptations. But he also gives us a way out. Just like when Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days. He was sending them to be tempted by the devil.
Yeah.
That was a test. Temptation in the Bible is really a test. It's not like what we look at as you're tempted for the drugs or you feel drawn to the drugs. It's actually a test. And God always gives us a way out. We just got to look for it and go with it. And I thought this was one of the best things that I read last night with the Bible study. It says, well, as Christians, one of the things that we do is when we're with the church group or people of Christian faith that we're supposed to be our mentors or help people, we never tell them the truth about our temptations. Nobody ever admits your temptations and your flaws to others, which we all have them. Mm-hmm. And the devil tempts us every single day.
Yeah.
But we don't ever tell other people. The only person who knows our true temptations is God himself.
Yeah.
So why not God?
Yeah, God and Satan. Yeah. And you know what? And that's a thing where, you know, and we were talking about this a little bit in last week's podcast, is being part of a community of other Christians, people of the church, and or having Bible groups or having Bible study with people. It's just good to be around those people, having those people in your lives that you can confide in and talk to and whatnot, and even confess some things, you know, and kind of get them off your chest, and just kind of talk it through, you know, where, like, you know, where did I go wrong and whatnot. But yeah, and the part of admitting your temptations and your sins and everything else, you know, that's the enemy giving you guilt. And there's a lot of differences between guilt and conviction. And guilt only comes from the enemy, but conviction comes from God.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. We don't admit our temptations because of guilt. Because we're guilty of our temptations when we really shouldn't be, because everybody has certain temptations, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, money, whatever your temptation may be in your life, coffee, or whatever. I'm coffee tempted. I'm sorry, I'm guilty, but okay, I fall to my temptations every morning. But
talked about this last week too. If he doesn't fall to his
the Satan comes out.
Yeah.
But temptation is something that's nothing to be ashamed of, because temptation is also a test from God. It's God's testing us of his love to us. It's testing us to see how much we really love and trust him. And throughout the years, throughout the Bible, there has been so many temptations and so many different things, and God's basically tested us in so many different ways to see if we listen, like what he did with Abraham, asking him to kill his son. Mm-hmm. And that was to see if he'd actually follow through and listen. Now, granted, God did not make him kill his son, but he got him right to the point where Abraham had his son tied down on the table, all ready for the slaughter. And then God came down and said, "Whoa, stop. Here's your lamb.
Yeah.
Butcher that."
Just joking.
Just joking. Put the knife away. Back away from the table, please.
Well, I think, you know, as far as you guys are saying with your temptations and people don't really admit them, that is one of the things that I've always actually liked least about Bible studies and stuff like that, is because, you know, you always get that one person that'll say, "Oh, you know, I struggle with this," but it's something that everybody knows everybody struggles with.
Yeah.
So they're not really putting themselves out there as much as they lead on.
But
Yeah.
But here's the difference. We all do different things with our temptations. Does it make
Right.
sense? So like depending on, you know, whatever your temptation is, lust, sex, alcohol, drugs, money, anything like that. Like, you know, what do you spend your money on? What kind of drugs do you do? Or where do you do them? Or how do you do them?
Yeah.
Where do you know, who do you have sex with? Or, you know, what do you do in your sexual temptations? You know, we all sin differently. And that's what actually stands us out.
Right. Well, I know one time, back when we were going to church every Sunday, which we're trying to get back into the loop of, but I'm talking about when I lived with my parents. We would go to church every Sunday, and there was this one person that that he used to, after the service, he used to hold like a mini Bible study type thing, for, you know, younger people. And one time, I actually had, there was never really many of us. It was more just all a group of friends. But one time, what was it? I wanted to meet with him about something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wanted to meet with him one-on-one, because he was someone I looked up to. He was someone, you know, in the religious,
Mentorship.
yeah, exactly. And, so I had a one-on-one meeting with him, and actually this is where we found one of my favorite restaurants, which was brand new at the time, Taste of New York. And we went there, and we skipped out on a Wednesday Bible study, and instead of going and do that, we met at the church. He took me to dinner, and, you know, we were talking, and he actually, I remember what it was. I was debating on joining the military, and he was in the military, and just the godly aspects of it, and there was a few things that I personally was struggling with as far as faith-wise. And like Dad said, he was like one of my mentors. And he sat down with me, and he laid all the cards out on the table for me as far as like what he struggles with.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of like a shock to me, because, you know, you look at your pastors, you look at, you know, different stuff like that, and you don't expect them to have issues. You know,
But believe it or not, I have more respect with pastors who actually admit their temptation.
Yeah.
And their flaws and
Right.
what they have fallen away. Because everybody in their life, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
care who you are, everybody had that time of life where they ran from God.
Definitely. And this person wasn't a pastor or anything like that. He was just a volunteer for the youth
Ministry.
group. Yeah, youth ministry, and he did his own little side thing. But yeah, it was, you just kind of, maybe it's just me, but you look at those people who are the pastors talking on stage, and, you know, the big faces, big leaders in the church, and you're just like, oh, they got it set.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing that, and he explained to me why he chose God. I know, like, everyone has their stories.
Yeah.
Everybody has their coming to God moment.
Yeah, they're coming to God.
Like, I believe Dad shared his on the podcast before. Isaiah, you've told me yours before. I've shared mine on the podcast before. And he had one of the best coming to God moments, honestly. But it was one of those things where it got to the point where he was sitting at the table at the restaurant, and he actually started, like, crying, and, like, he got really emotional with it. And that's why, you know, I think it's so strong that we do answer the question, why God?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you talk about your coming to God moment, when you know, think back at how, because most of the time when your coming to God moment is in a time where you're just down, and you feel like you're at the lowest low, yeah. And then all of a sudden God comes in and starts to bring you up. And that's why I feel it's such an important thing to
Well, I think the coming
talk
to God
about.
moment is more like when we walk away from God is we have so much bad that happens or whatever, or you hit your low, I think most people, just my coming to God moment a lot of times is you hit that point where you know you no longer can do it on your own.
Yeah.
And you can't have any human being help you out.
Yeah.
So you have nowhere to turn, and that's when you actually sit there and you test God.
Yeah.
Like he tests us. It's okay to test God back. There is no problem with testing God back. And I think our coming to God moment is us testing him back. You hit your low and then you finally say, dude, I'm here. Yes, I walked away. I'm ready to come back, but what are you going to do for me?
Well,
How are you going to help me out of this? And that's when God steps in and he says, follow me.
Yeah.
And we get that moment. And you have that, like, until you actually have your coming to God moment, you don't realize the moment. It is so strong. It's so powerful.
Well,
You'll never forget it.
There's a story, kind of about what you're saying. I don't know if this is a true story or what, but it's about a businessman who's walking down the street of New York City, and he was one of those Wall Street people, and he just made a really big sale, and him and his family was going to be set for life. He did not understand this, or he didn't realize this, but he had a hole in his pocket. And he's walking down the street, and as he's walking, money is falling out of his pocket, literally.
Yeah.
And some homeless person picks him up and goes to tap him on the shoulder, and the dude just shrugs him off and says, "Get away from me." And so the homeless dude's following him, picking up the money, and keeps trying to tap him on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, you're dropping money, you're dropping money." And he's not letting him know, and he's not giving him the time of day. And then finally, when the dude realizes, he gets like a block away from his house. And he realizes his pocket is empty. He gets ready to take it out and realizes his pocket is empty. And he starts freaking out. He turns around, and the homeless guy's sitting there with a backpack full of all of his money. He says, "Hey, you were dropping this as you were walking." And that's like the coming to God moment. Like, we're losing it, and we don't realize it. We just keep going, and God's trying to...
I love that analogy.
God's like, "Hey, I'm right here. I'm right here." And we're just like, "Okay, cool. I got you."
You know, that is probably one of the best
really good
analogy stories.
Yeah.
And it is. And that coming to God. But why God? And the whole thing about why God is, why not God?
Yeah.
There's proof over and over and over throughout history. Not just with other people's stories, in your own life history.
Yeah.
If you really look back in your own life history, why not God? Because he's been there your whole life. He's been talking to you. He's gotten you through some trouble.
Yeah.
That you know, like if you think back on your life, there's been times in your life, and there's been instances in your life that you did something totally stupid, but you pulled it off.
Yeah.
And you don't know how you did it. And everybody be like, "Man, that was cool, you did it." And you're like, "Oh, how did that happen?" That happened because of God.
Yeah.
I'll give a story about when I was racing years ago. Everybody thought it was like one of the greatest moves ever in a race car. And I'd never forget it. I was out there racing, we're running, this big accident happens. And I got clipped in the rear, and the car went into spin. And I wound up going through the grass, through the infield, and I'm spinning. And I never forget it because I don't remember what direction the car was going. I just know I was spinning and all this. Next thing, before I knew it, I came back out on the track. Now this is going down the front stretch. I came back out on the track. I still on the gas, never even lifted off the gas. I hit the track coming into turn one. I passed like 6 people while spinning. Came out in front of them on the track, up into turn one, caught gripping, went around and gained 6 spots and never even lost it. Kept going. Everybody like, "That was the most amazing driving I ever seen." That wasn't me driving the car. I was just holding on for dear life saying, "What the heck?"
Wow.
Just God made it. Where the car was spinning, he made that car land just right. I hit the corner. Everything was good. I gained my bearings. Oh, I'm still racing. Okay, let's keep going. And we all have those little moments in life where I don't care if you want to believe or not. Without God, it would never happen that way.
Yeah.
God is just there at all times. I mean, I know for a fact, and I know you do too, Isaiah. I'm pretty sure you do too. You have that moment where you're just so frustrated with life, you need that time alone.
Yeah.
So you go in that time alone and punch your bathroom wall, and sorry,
No, it's okay. Sorry.
You get that moment where you go alone and you're by yourself and you do punch walls or whatever you may do, but you got your frustration. But I know, like with me, every time I get that frustration moment, I mean, I'll yell or whatever, do whatever. But then you have that coming of, like, somebody smacked you in the head and then you stop, and then that's when you stop and pray. And we start praying, and God's there listening. He's talking back to you. Yeah. He's letting you have your little fit. But he waits a minute, lets you get a little bit out, and he smacks you in the back of the head. Yeah. And it reminds me of that. It's a Facebook meme going around. Not a meme, bunch of things about animals. Yeah. And there's one where one person puts his hand in, the other person puts his hand in, and the dog's sitting there looking, and they smack the dog in the back of the head, and the dog kind of puts his paw in on top. It reminds me of that. You're having your fit, you're doing your thing, and God's watching it, letting you go, and you're like, okay, stop it now.
Yeah, get back in the game.
Yeah, get back in. Get your head back on. He's always there, and there's times when, like in surgery, if you go to surgery, you can't have your family in there. God is there with you. Another analogy that I've heard, and I've heard other people say, they went to prison. They went in jail. Your family can't be in jail with you. No. But never guess who's there with you. God is there with you. Mm-hmm. You did wrong, but God is still there with you. He still loves you. He's waiting for you to repent and to move on.
Yeah. And Chris was saying how, you have that come in the God moment, even just in moments where, it's not like, it's not having your salvation, restored or basically like your...
Nate's watching. He said, yo.
Hey, Nate. How's Germany?
Basically, like, you're not, like, so he's not saying, like, you're just, you have these moments where you're not even thinking about praying, you're not even thinking about, God or you're just having your moment of weakness, of anger, frustration, sorrowness, but like he said, you have these moments after where you feel kind of sorry, you tell God you're sorry, you have that conviction, and you come to him and you pray, and you come back to him, you realize. And honestly, that I've had that happen a lot to me lately, and I so I've definitely struggled with that lately, is to try to get myself to realize that these things, taking out my anger, frustration, or I try to do it in the healthy ways where, like, running, I'll run my frustration or my anger or my sorrow out of me until I'm too tired.
Yeah, you do.
But and then I just I kind of realize afterwards, like,
but
I'm not doing the correct thing here. Like, I need to be praying. Doing,
that's your humanly thing.
Yes.
But then whatever you get done your humanly thing, you always go back to praying, and that's the godly thing. That's where God will come in and smack you in the back of the head. Yeah. Say, okay, you're done. Shut up. By the way, Nate, if you are still watching, Devin and Michaela are going to be having a baby. You've been away in Germany for a while. I know you haven't been up to date because you haven't been on Facebook and that, but just figure out, let you know.
We haven't told the podcast yet. Well, now we did. But.
Well, yeah, podcast people. Devin and Michaela's having a baby. They're coming to God moment.
Yeah. It's all real now.
Here's the other thing is, we all have our doubts, and I like this part of scripture, and I don't remember the exact scripture, but Jesus and the disciples were in a boat, and they were in bad stormy weather.
Nate said woohoo.
They're in bad stormy weather, and Jesus was down in the bottom cabin sleeping. And the storm was happening, and the disciples were all scared that they're going to sink and die. And they actually woke Jesus up and they said, "Hey, wake up, we're in a bad storm, we're going to sink, we're going to die." Jesus, and then you figure, these are the disciples, they just seen the man bring somebody back to life. They seen the man heal lepers. So, I don't know about you, but I watch somebody bring somebody back to life. I'm not going to be worried about dying in no ship. I'm going to be kind of like, oh, he's kind of just brought another guy back to life. I dropped, he's going to bring me back to life. I'm not going to be worried about it. But they were, and they were like panicking about everything going on. And they woke him up. And they said, "Jesus, this is bad. This ship is sinking. We're in rough waters, this, that, and the other." And he woke up and he stopped the storm. And they all looked at him like, what kind of man does the weather listen to? And what is going on here? And that's when they kind of got their faith back. But they had lost their faith a little bit while they was on the ship. We all kind of lose our faith from time to time with little things, but God is there to bring us the faith back. It's up to us just to watch the signs and see what he does.
Yes, absolutely.
I miss you guys. Hope you guys are doing well, Nate, and sleep well. Sorry, people, that's Nate Daniels. He's on our podcast early on. He's in the military. He's over in Germany right now with his family for the next 3 years. When he left left America, he gave up all social media and all that, and he just joined Facebook back, and we just now get to talk to him a little bit.
Did you already read his last comment?
There you go in bed because it's 4 a.m. there.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's up at 4 a.m. But I'm pretty honest.
Or something.
I hope he is at 4
I'm
a.m.
going to use this story that he woke up just to watch the podcast.
Yeah, right?
You made the phone crooked. So I'll use the excuse. He got up just to watch the podcast.
He got the notification. I was like, oh.
Oh, gotta watch the podcast. Haven't seen it in a long time. But with the ship story, I just explained the ship story when they're on this boat. Even the disciples who watched this man bring people back to life, they watched him kill lepers, lost faith.
Yeah.
And they woke him up and said, "Hey, the ship is going to sink. We're going to die." He woke up and he stopped the weather. He said, "Yeah, you little faith. Have faith. We'll be fine."
Yeah.
And God does the same thing to us today. We may not be physically informed with Jesus and walking with him, but God is walking with us every day, and he's telling us, have faith. Have a little faith. When you have your finances or your home life or your love life or your health or anything is going bad or rough, have faith. God is there to help you. He will get you through. He will help you in your finances. Is he going to make you filthy rich? No, he's not. But he's going to get you by.
You gotta make sure your bills are paid.
Yeah, he's going to get you to the next step that you need to. But you got to have faith, and you got to give him the opportunity to help you.
Yeah.
If you don't give him the opportunity, he can't help you. And like I tell everybody all the time, he ain't going to stand there with a red blinking sign saying, "Yo, over here, I'm here to help you. Hey, look this way." It's gonna be subtle little signs, but we gotta talk to him and bond with him.
Yes, like I always say, when God speaks, it's going to be this subtle, the still small voice in your head, in your heart. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna feel it. You know when God is talking to you. Even, you could completely miss it, but you'll know when something's really speaking to you, when something's tugging on you, telling you, "Hey, I'm here. I'm working for you. I'm working with you right now." God stays absolutely faithful to you, and that is exactly why, why God, right? Just through everybody's moments in life.
You gotta think about everything that God's done for humanity throughout the years. I mean, he gave us many, many chances. I can honestly say, I don't know if I'd be so forgiving on human beings. We've done so much wrong. We've taken him out of every situation in life. We spit on him. We don't believe him. We don't trust him. As a human being, we are very disgusting people, very hateful people. Yet he still loves us enough to give us his only son. Puts him on earth. And when he's on earth as human form, he gets tempted with every temptation you possibly can be tempted with. Yet he stayed sinless. He did not sin. He stayed pure. He did his mission, knowing he's going to die the most brutal death known to humanly, manly possible, but he still did it. And then he took the death for us to take our sins. I don't know what more you can ask for from somebody.
No.
I mean, he over the years, what he's done for Abraham, what he's done for David, what he did for Saul and Moses and all that. I mean, all the stuff he's done for humanity over the years to save us, yet we still kick him out, we spit on him, we slur him, and we don't want to let him into anything, and then we blame him for everything bad that happens in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it's our own fault that we're bad, if things bad happen in our lives, all we got to do is watch him, follow him, believe in him, grab that Bible, read the Bible, read the next chapter of each Bible. It will tell you the next step. And he's given us so much grace and mercy over the years. Why not God? Shouldn't be why God, it should be why not God. Yeah. In all human forms and shapes. God should be in the schools. God should be in the church. He should be in the government. God should be everywhere on this earth. And we need to stop cherishing earthly things over the spiritual.
Yes. And this very famous Bible verse, all things will pass through this world. And so, that's really good. And that's actually something that I kind of struggle with is, just reading my Bible a lot. Like, I try to be good at it, when I really think about it. But
do you get the Bible started up?
No, yeah.
See, that helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Because it pops up with stuff.
Right.
I haven't read the Bible in over a year. But one of the problems is I haven't done any reading in over a year. Because I work too much. So if I try and read a book, I make it about 3 sentences in before I'm sleeping. On any book. I can't even talk to somebody usually half the time for more than a couple minutes. Devin knows. And many times talking about business and I'd be mid-sentence. Heck, if you're with us from the beginning of the podcast, you would know because there's a couple times talking on a podcast before we went live video that I fell asleep during the podcast mid-sentence and started talking about turbochargers. But follow God. There's other ways to do it. I've been listening to Christian radio a lot, and they do sermons every night on my ride home. There's different sermons going on. You don't have to read the Bible to follow God 100%. I mean, you got to know the Bible. You don't have to read it every second. But learn something about it. Mm-hmm. Watch podcasts like this. Learn a little bit. Talk to people. People tell you a little bit more and more. I mean, today, me and my landlord, who's a pastor, we're talking a little bit about COVID and that and with religion today. I've talked to other customers who are pastors, whatever. Just talk. You can learn. With that, you want to say what you're...
I think my comment section, I want it to be, this is a little bit personal for a lot of people. But I just want to know if you're willing to share what's your coming to God moment? What was that moment where you realized What was that moment where you turned around and you saw God holding your bag of money? And if that is too personal of a question, because I completely understand, there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to share it just because, they're ashamed or because of whatever.
Should never be ashamed of your coming to God moment.
Right.
Because that's a beautiful thing.
No, I agree. But if you're not willing to share it, do you believe you've had it yet? Yes or no?
For my comment section, what is, and I think this is all really gonna be personal, because it's all about people,
Coming to God.
coming to God, basically. Why not God? Why do you follow God? Why do you have faith in Him? So my question is, why do you have faith in God? Where did your faith come from? I guess is my question. Where did your faith come from? Or where did 100% your faith come into play in your life? I'd really like to know, because mine, I really don't think it came into play right away when I started really going to church, going to youth group, and to Awakening Conference and things like that. I don't think my faith was 100% even then. I was in, you can ask anybody that I went to school with, you can ask Devin, I was a Bible thumper. Everybody would call me a Bible thumper. Or a Christian Mingle guy or whatever, I don't know. Or Mr. Christian Mingle,
ChristianMingle.com.
Yeah. But my
But then you
faith,
got banned.
but 100% my faith, I strongly believe didn't come into play until probably recently. But even now, I'm still struggling, So I'd like to know, where has, if you've gotten 100% of your faith, where did it come into play? And
Nice.
why?
Nice. Alright. My final question. I want to know, what is the temptation in your life that you battle the most, that you are fighting with God or having God help you fight? What is the hardest temptation that you're fighting? Because we all have that one demon in our life that we just have trouble shaking. I know a lot of people waste drugs, you got it hooked up on drugs and now you're trying to kick it, but you can't, or you kick it for a little while and it comes back and you're fighting that temptation constantly, or whatever it may be, or you're a thief and you just can't stop stealing or whatever.
Or even lust,
Or
where
lust,
you're wanting to have sex, or
Getting
you're
Asian
watching
hookers all the
pornography,
time.
or things like that.
Right.
And
Whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
I want to know what is your test that God's putting you through, and that's your test. Whatever your heavy temptations are, that's your test with you and God. And I want to know what your test is. But I had a second part, and I can't remember it now because when you were talking, I think you took part of it. So I kind of rearranged mine. But
what
I want to know.
Was it where
No, it popped in my head when he was talking, and then I think. Because I had this one set, then this other one popped in, and then I lost it. It popped in and out just as fast as it comes and goes. But so I want to know about your temptations, what the Bible will call your test in life, that you're going through, that you actually need God to help you get through it, because we all have it, and don't be ashamed of it, because we all have it. We're all evil human beings. We're all sinners. We all have our things. And I want to know, the second part of that kind of is, what are you doing to help fight against it? what tools are you using? How are you finding God to see you to get you through it?
Yeah.
Especially, I really want to know, like, recovering drug addicts or recovering sex addicts or recovering alcoholics. If you're on a recovery, I want to know, where did you find the strength with God? Or where did God show you that's keeping you on the right path of cleanness?
Like, what do you do in those moments of your temptation, if you're even, especially when you're recovering and things like that? And I just want to just to clarify a little bit, just like guilt, temptation is from the enemy. It is from the devil. It's not God putting you through temptation necessarily, but
he's allowing it to happen.
But he allows it to happen.
That's why he gives you the
to
back
test
door.
you and to test your faith and to see what you do, to see how weakened you are in mind and spirit. There was something quick I wanted to say. I don't know.
I'm working off on you. You're forgetting.
But I think I think temptation was actually kind of a really good theme for this podcast. So I mean, I really liked talking about that. Even like if we do like a sort of a part 2 for this podcast and doing.
I think this
leaving
is a
off from
subject
temptation.
that we can. When we ask why God, it's a nice area where we can actually go different levels of why God in everybody's life, because we all have that coming to God moment, and why God through the years we can touch on many different aspects.
And with
kind of like saying why Michaela. Oh, hey Michaela.
And with temptation, and we ask the question why God. God's the only person. God is the only.
You are about to be asking why God. I did not get fed in the next 5 minutes.
The devil is awake. The devil, Satan's in the house. Satan's in the house. Clear the room.
The only thing that will get you through temptation is God himself. And with that
being said, I hope you have a great week.
Don't forget to have faith over fear.
And eat food and feed your pregnant wife.